Hello and welcome to The Hive, where minds collide, ideas amplify. I'm your host, Julian Waghann. Our show creates an open discussion for cultural, technological, and social media issues that matter for Gen Z from diverse perspectives and in a thought-provoking way. Now, we invite you to join us on any of our platforms, CGTN website and app, Facebook, YouTube, X, Weibo, TikTok, Douyin, WeChat, and Yangshipin. And please leave your comments below. This year marks the 100th birthday of Beijing's Palace Museum. This iconic world-class cultural heritage site, transformed from the former imperial palace of the Ming and Qing dynasties, bears witness to millennia of civilization and dialogue between past and present. Today, let's explore its journey of inheritance and innovation. In this special episode, we invite 4 experts from various fields to help us decode this cultural gem from the outside in. Martijn de Geus, Associate Professor at the School of Architecture, Tsinghua University; Zhang Jianxi, Location Sound Recordist; Cao Zijin, a Senior Contemporary Arts Specialist currently serving as a Consultant of Modern and Contemporary Arts at Kupar International Auction House; Yao Haijian, a bilingual tour guide in Beijing. Welcome, everyone.
Thank you.
It's good to have you here. Now, I wanted to mention that we had originally invited an expert from the Palace Museum, but unfortunately she's unable to join us today because of the Palace Museum's centennial exhibition. But I think this works out perfectly because, it makes us dive into this ancient Palace Museum from a less conventional point of view. Before we take the deep dive, though, we've got a mini quiz for our guests as well as our viewers to see how well we really know about the Palace Museum that is celebrating its 100th birthday. Okay, so we've got 4 questions right here. I've got the questions, you've got the answers. Ready? Okay. Question number 1. Approximately how many cultural relics are within the Palace Museum's collection? A, less than 1 million. B, between 1 and 1.5 million. C, between 1.5 and 2 million. Now, let's start with Martijn first.
I'm gonna go for B, in the middle, yeah.
In the middle way. That is the Chinese way. Zijin?
I think I would say option C.
Okay, C is between 1.5 and 2 million. Okay, and what about you?
I would go with C. I think it's like a lot of things in there.
All right, and now our last but not least, Haijian, what about you over there?
Yeah, I will take C. More than 1.5 million and less than 2 million.
I'm sure he knows.
Yeah.
You must know.
All right, you guys come prepared. The answer is C. The Palace Museum's collection is so vast that if you decided to dedicate 1 minute to appreciating each item, you would need to spend over 3.5 years, 24 hours a day, without a single break to see them all.
Wow.
There we go. Congratulations to the 2 of you, and of course you as well. I am sure you were just cooperating with us. All right, question number 2. Which 2 ancient Chinese dynasties did the Forbidden City mainly serve as an imperial palace? A, the Ming dynasty; B, the Qing dynasty; C, the Ming and Qing dynasties. Martijn?
Well, I know this one. It's Ming and Qing.
Yes.
Okay, do you know for sure?
I'm pretty sure.
Okay,
I never know. You never know. I thought just now I was also, but
We allow open, other opinions and perspectives as well. So, Zijin,
I agree with Martijn.
you don't have to agree. What about you,
It's
Haijun?
600 years, so it must be 2
Two
dynasties.
dynasties,
Yeah.
yes.
Smart answer. Last but not least, Haijun, what about for you?
Yeah, C, definitely C. Yeah, more than 600 years of history.
You guys must have been
Accommodated 2
collaborating
dynasties.
before coming here. The answer is C. The Ming and Qing dynasties. The Ming dynasty built the Forbidden City, and the Qing dynasty ruled for over 260 years. So the answer is C. Okay, moving on to question number 3. What is the most notable spatial layout feature of the Palace Museum? A, central axis symmetry; B, random spatial arrangement, whatever that means, randomness; C, Western style radial layouts. Martijn?
well, as an architect, I have to say A.
Okay, well, as a curator and art specialist, what
I
would you say?
choose the central one.
The central axis symmetry.
Yes.
And as a sound recordist?
I will go with the professor, whatever he said. It should be the first one.
Okay, Haijin, I hope you're not going with
A.
the
I
professor.
would take A, yeah. Like I mentioned, this central access to my customers on an everyday basis. A.
Well, he's got it. He's got it. The entire Forbidden City is, so the answer is A. The entire Forbidden City is symmetrically arranged along a single powerful north-south axis, designed not just for beauty, but to reflect the ancient Chinese belief that the emperor was the son of heaven at the very center of the cosmic order. That makes us, all of us, at the center of the of the cosmos. We're at the center of the universe. What do you make of that?
Great.
Okay, our last question, all right? This is going to be a really hard one. Our last question is very hard, so are you guys prepared? Ready?
Hopefully.
Okay, so Martin, you're going to go first. This is a very difficult question. I hope you take your time, okay? What is the total area of the Palace Museum in square meters? A, 520,000 square meters. B, 720,000 square meters. C, 920,000 square meters.
Let's see. I don't know this one, so I'm gonna estimate. You know, C was 900,000. You said, right?
920,000, yes, around 900.
It seems a little too large, so I'm gonna go with B. Yeah, because I think it's maybe around 400 meters and about 300 meters by 3 by 400 meters, maybe 500. I'm gonna go with B, 700,000. More or less.
It was bigger than what it looks today, right? I mean, before it was much, much bigger.
So which area are you looking at?
The Palace Museum. Well, yes, the Palace Museum.
Yeah, so I'm going to go with that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Zadine?
I think I will go with the 720,000 one as well.
So you're going along with the professor again?
Yes, after that.
Is this the theme of today? We're all going along with the professor. I'm going to start with Haijian next time.
Yes, I think he might know more than us, actually.
Which is why I'm not asking him.
Yes.
So what about for you, Jianxi?
I will take a bold guess. I will take C.
C.
Yeah.
Okay.
Now
I'll
that
guess
is the spirit of the Palace Museum's, or the Centennial exhibition spirit, right? The Centennial spirit is to be bold and brave. And the answer, of course, is Haijian. What do you think?
B, yeah. 720,000 square meters. Yeah.
Exactly. The answer is B, 720,000 square meters.
All right.
That's about 100 soccer fields, or 1.5 times the size of the entire country of the Vatican City, which is impressive, which is really, really impressive. All right, Globe fam, how many did you guess right? Please tell us in your comments below. Now, whether you're here today because you're blown away by the sheer size of the Palace Museum's grand courtyards, the iconic relics, or the exotic details, everyone's Palace Museum story is going to be a bit different. So what's yours? Next, let's hear it from our guest. Now, Martin, I know that the Palace Museum was one of the first places that you visited upon arriving in Beijing. What's your story with the Palace Museum?
Yeah, maybe I was unlike most foreign visitors I just learned, but the first place I visited in Beijing was the Palace Museum. Because I had always imagined this grand palace, which used to be inaccessible, and now we can access it. I wanted to see it as one of the first things here. So I arrived, and next day I went to the Palace Museum. And I was mostly impressed by, first of all, the scale, the size, even just from the Tiananmen Gate, walking to the entrance of Palace Museum. It took already forever, and then you go to this big courtyard with the river, and next one, and next one. And I found that, as you just alluded to, they were all arranged according to this central axis. And what I learned later, in fact, if you look at this axis and then you have the square of the walls, this kind of forms an imaginary zhong, which is the middle, the center, and this is zhongguo, the center of the country. I thought that was quite impressive. And if you go along this corridor, this axis from the south entrance towards the end of the north, you come to this little hill, and that's one of my favorite spots, even though it's not technically in the museum, but from there you can look out over the entire palace. And yeah, I've never seen a view like that in any city in the world, where you can stand in the middle of the city, look out over this vast kind of network of gardens and courtyards, but at the same time see the city as an edge rise around it. It's very impressive.
You spend an entire day walking through the Palace Museum, and at the end, your work has only just started. The hike only starts right there.
Yes.
That's right.
That's the Chinese way.
Yes.
The Chinese work very hard, as you can see, right? Starting from the emperor. What about for you, Zijin?
as I was born and raised in Beijing, so my story is more personal. So when I was younger, I would ride my bike to the corner tower at dusk and stay there until the sun slowly set. So I could like really enjoy myself alone with all the shimmering river, and it is like one of my sweetest memory from my teenage life.
Huh?
Yeah.
I wonder what happened there. What else happened there?
It's only me and the corner tower.
Well, for the moment, it's
Yes.
just you. That's your hideout.
Yes.
Okay. What about for you, Jianxi?
Like Zijin, I was born here in Beijing as well. My first impression about the Palace Museum is when I was very young, my parents took me there and we took a group picture in front of Tiananmen. Then after that, I went to different places. Then finally, I got away back here in Beijing. A couple years ago, I started to work in focus on documentary projects. The funny thing is that like 5 years, for the past 5 years, I've been working on 3 long-term projects, all related to the Palace Museum. So I would call this kind of connection as fate or 缘分 in Chinese. And because of all these connections, I can be here today is also a sort of fate for me.
Well, maybe you lived and worked in the Forbidden City in your past life.
Maybe.
Yeah. And what about for you, Haijian?
Yeah, well, I was a international tour leader before the COVID, and I didn't know much about the Forbidden City. And I have read a lot of books and the history about the Forbidden City during the COVID. So I got more interested in the culture and the tours in the Forbidden City. So after this pandemic, I focused more tours of the Forbidden City. So I'm still working and learning about the history and the culture of the Forbidden City now, even though I visited the Forbidden City on an everyday, the Palace Museum on an everyday basis.
Well, it's an incredible story. You know, you're already sharing some incredible information with us through that quiz earlier. So you're still learning. I'm sure you already know tremendous amount of information that you can share with us today. Over the past 100 years, the Forbidden City, or the Palace Museum, I should say, has gone through tremendous changes. What have you noticed over the years?
Well, you know, the first time I visited was about 15 years ago. And at that time, first of all, there were a lot of people, yeah, but there was a kind of limited amount of what you could see. So it was mostly along the central axis and then some of the side areas. But now that I've gone more and more, it seems that there's still the same amount of people visiting, but you have a very different experience because there's much more accessible. So what I really like is now every time I go, I can see a new thing still, or I can find, hey, today I want to see that, and maybe there's not too many people there. Because of course, the Hall of Supreme Harmony is amazing, but I've seen it a few times and there's so many people, I want somewhere more quiet. And that's possible now. So I can go onto the wall, I can go to the several side courtyards, and I really like that. It's the fact that you can make more of a kind of personal journey now in this big museum.
Well, it's a huge museum because we have families coming over to China, to Beijing, and every time we have a foreigner coming over, we take them to the Palace Museum. Yeah. And every time we go, there's a new place that would visit because it is just so humongous.
That's right.
And for you, Zijin, you spent a long time at the Palace Museum as well. I'm pretty sure because you grew up in Beijing.
Yes.
Is there a cultural relic or a spot at the Palace Museum that has left the most indelible impression on you?
I would say I really love the inscribed plaques because instead of the imperial messages it used to convey, I really enjoy its pure beauty. You can see the very expressive calligraphy and also the texture of the carvings and how it could perfectly blend with the whole architecture. So every time I see it, it feels like a timeless visual poetry, and it makes me want to stay and look closer.
Well,
Yeah.
that is it's so beautiful. That is so beautiful.
Yeah, that's my spot. Yeah.
Because Martin, he's talking about change, and you're talking about something that is permanent, that is
Yes.
more timeless. And that together, the two of you together, that is really the whole of the Chinese idea of harmony, with the yin and the yang, the changed and the non-changed. Even though we know that everything is permanent, but there is stasis within change, and there is change within stasis, which is beautiful. Now, Jianxi, what about for you? You spent a great deal, probably more time than all of us combined at the Palace Museum, filming the documentaries that you did, which were amazing. I'm a personal fan of it. Was there a moment or maybe a place that struck you the most looking back?
Because I'm a sound recordist, I deal with a lot of sound, but the most impressive thing there actually is the rare silence. If you live in the city long enough, you will notice there are a lot of noise surrounded, like traffic or human beings and machines. But the Palace Museum is far away from the main roads, and also because of their fire restrictions, you can see merely electric devices in there. So before the opening hour, if you get a chance to work in there, your only companion would be the walls, the beautiful architectures, maybe sometimes the crows, like the huge black bird. But in that situation, you can experience the pure sound of that place. I once joked that if you get a chance to work in there like that, you will experience the ambient sound exactly like what Emperor got 600 years ago.
Oh my God. You had the imperial treatment, basically. Is there a way for us to get that same treatment? Going in a regular, during regular hours on a regular day?
Come to the documentary industry.
That is true. Go and watch the documentary. Now, Haijian, I am pretty sure you've seen the documentary, but I'm not going to ask you about the documentary. Because you go to the Palace Museum so much, you are probably a daily witness to the changes of the Palace Museum. Now, I want to ask you, what is new for the centennial? What is new for visitors today?
I think there are a lot of new areas open to the public in this year. I think that's the biggest new thing to me. And there are more exhibitions, and many buildings look even more beautiful after the renovation. So it allows the visitors to explore the Forbidden City in the Palace Museum in a deeper way. So that's more buildings and more exhibitions. That's the biggest new things to me take place in the Palace Museum this year.
And Haijian, what is the most asked questions about the Palace Museum from the foreign visitors?
Wow, there are a lot of questions I received on everyday basis, a lot of them. So the most interesting questions, or most frequent questions I received from my customers are where do the emperors actually live every day? And what's the difference between Chinese dragon and Western dragon? And what do those little animals stand for on the roof of the building? So they're curious about those details and a lot of small things in the Forbidden City. So literally everything, every piece of the tile, brick, animal, they would ask.
It's I don't know if you have a photo of those tile animals on top of the rooftops. I mean, where you're seeing from this image of our studio right here, right now. You're seeing this beautiful awning, this beautiful roof, but you don't. On top of that, usually at the Forbidden City, if this were the Forbidden City, the Palace Museum, you would see those animals lining the sides of the rooftop. Now, Haijian, if you can give us a sense or briefly tell us what those rooftop animals do for the emperors who live inside the Palace Museum.
Yeah, for sure. Every animal, every piece of the tile, every brick has a different meaning behind them. For those mythical figures, they stand on the eaves, just like you mentioned, not on the top of the building. Instead, on the eaves, on the side of the building, are the symbols of the protection of like a guardian of the building, protect the buildings from catching fire and warding off the evil spirit. So in total, there are 11 of them. The first one is a man riding on a rooster, and then followed by the Chinese dragon, phoenix, lion, seahorse, hamlet horse, 酸泥亚鱼蟹之斗牛行驶. None of them is the real animal. They are all the legendary animals.
Wow, that's
doing doing such things of protection and against the fire, and as well as the decoration to the building.
Well, given that the Palace Museum is still there right now, or I should say the Forbidden City is still there right now, I'm sure they're doing something. As all of you with your unique connections to the Palace Museum could probably agree that the Palace Museum is not just an exhibition venue, it's a vast storage of ancient wisdom, know-how, creativity, and beauty. Now, Martin, to simply use the word traditional Chinese to describe the Palace Museum complex is probably a huge understatement, right? Now, how would you describe the architecture, the aesthetics, and the philosophy? What makes them stand out?
Well, you know, what's interesting about the Palace Museum is that it's not just a building, it's not just a church, but it's actually a complex. And that complex is an embodiment of some core thoughts about Chinese space and Chinese culture. First of all, it's a series of gardens, courtyards, and buildings that create a network together. So it's a complex of closed and open spaces arranged along this central axis. Secondly, it's also made up out of different building elements, and namely wooden elements. Yeah? If the Western architecture is an architecture of stone, the Chinese architecture is about wood, and there is one central element to the architecture, which is the column and the bracket system, which creates this pattern. So both from the spatial pattern, so the gardens and the buildings, as well as from the building elements, you can see it as a kind of a perfect example of the embodiment of Chinese spatial thinking.
It is absolutely true that the architecture of Chinese architecture makes great use of the idea of wood as one of the 5 elements. But I just wanted to mention that the other elements are also widely observed inside the Forbidden City complex, the Palace Museum complex, which is the idea of harmony in Chinese. You have to have all of the elements together to create something that is holistic and something that is in balance. And Zijin, as a curator, I'm sure each space is filled with infinite potential, not to mention something as vast as the Palace Museum. Now, can you imagine how would the Palace Museum be reinvented and used for today and for the new age?
I think the Palace Museum, it served as a vast exhibition space now, and it has transformed over time. It used to be the palace of the imperial family, of course, but now we can also enjoy ourselves there inside the whole building, and we can imagine the life once lived there and what took place there. And in my boldest imagination, I would say maybe we can open up the side halls or the palaces for the artists to be the residency in the future. And we might invite the artists to stay there for, let's say, 2 or 4 weeks, and they could stay there every day and make their own art practice just inside the buildings and the halls. And at the end of the day, they can show their own work with the cultural relics or the artifacts altogether. Isn't that amazing?
I am so looking forward to moving into the Forbidden City. Maybe Airbnb will open something in the Forbidden City, so everyone's going to have an experience inside the Forbidden City. That's incredible. Now, Haijian, I know for you it's probably a tremendous challenge to show people and to help people today make sense of the Palace Museum complex, not to mention people from such different cultures and different backgrounds. Now, what is your secret or your hack?
Well, when I guide those foreign visitors, I try to explain the culture of the Forbidden City through the ideas they already know. For example, when I talk about the central axis, I would tell them that's the Ming Street. That's the meridian line in the Forbidden City, which represents the center of the order and the power. So I also explain and the yin and yang and the balance and the harmony to the foreign visitors. And for example, if I guide for those American tourists, I would mention both the founding father of the United States, the George Washington, and Emperor Qianlong. And they were contemporaries. They passed away at the same year in 1799. For those Italian tourists, I would mention Castiglione. I'm not quite sure I pronounced that right in Italian, who brought in those perspective painting method and into China, and I would show them where his actually studio is, where he painted those famous paintings. So that's the kind of thing I would help my customers to relate to the Forbidden City, to the Palace Museum, to some stories took place in the Forbidden City, and they can get an idea and the figure of the history of the year, which is somebody actually lived and something happened in their own country.
I'm sure the emperor had a lot to say to George Washington about the Palace Museum or the Forbidden City back then, since they passed away in the same year, which is something that I didn't know before. That's a great piece of information. Now, Jianxi, I want to come back to you, and I want to ask you if there's one spot that you can recommend to our viewers, one must-visit spot. Which one would it be inside the Palace Museum?
I think I would recommend a place called Gallery of Clocks, where you can see, it's called 钟表馆, where you can see a lot of fantastic works in there. It's like a combination of Western style, majorly from Europe, and also some of the clocks were made in Qing dynasty. There are like artisans from Guangzhou. They made those kind of clocks. Yeah.
Is it because that's the only place where you can hear the Palace Museum without the imperial treatment?
Not the only place, but visually, both visually and you can enjoy a lot. Yeah.
Okay. And what about for you, Zijin?
I would still recommend the exterior, the corner tower, because the view there is so different in different seasons, and you know the seasons in Beijing is so distinct. So in spring and summertime, you will see the shimmering river with the birds and the little ducks there. And during the winter, you will see the heavy snow cover the river as a whole. It's so beautiful, and I think everyone could find their own personal moment there.
Well, if you had been an emperor, I'm sure you've been an emperor for the people, because she's thinking about bringing artists inside the Palace Museum.
Yes.
And she's also thinking about the corner towers, which is the only parts of the Palace Museum that we get to see, as visitors,
Yes.
or as everyday, in our quotidian life that we get to see from the outside, which is definitely an emperor for the people.
Yeah.
And Martin, what about for you?
Well, apart from the hill, which is outside the Palace Museum that I mentioned already, my favorite spot inside the Palace Museum is a library, actually. And it's a pavilion which is made by Qianlong, that which is mentioned, the emperor. And it's modeled after one of my favorite buildings in China, which is the Tianyige. It is the oldest private library in Asia. It's located in Ningbo. And it has an interesting architecture which features black columns, because in traditional Chinese writings, in the I Ching, the blackness represents the safety from fire, so it represents water. And he based a copy of that building inside the Palace Museum, and it's only been opened since recent years. And I didn't know this before, and I just stumbled upon it at some point, and I was struck, because of course, if we go somewhere and we like something, we bring a souvenir. And he went to that place, he liked his library, he liked the garden, he brought it into his home. Yeah, why not? I like that, so I show people that when I go there.
Well, you're the emperor, right? You can bring home anything you want
nice.
to.
Yeah.
So what is your favorite spot at the Palace Museum? If you've visited the Palace Museum before, please leave us a comment below. You're watching our Palace Museum Centennial special on The Hype. Stay with us, we'll be right back. Welcome back, everyone. I want to share a piece of fact at this moment. As early as 2015, the total area of the Palace Museum open to the public had already reached 65%. And this to mark the centennial anniversary. The Garden of Ningzhou Palace, also known as the Qianlong Garden, has opened to the public for the first time. It's a marvelous specimen of Qing Dynasty gardens and also a shining example of Palace Museum's century-long renovation and preservation efforts. So I'd like to turn to Jianxi right now. During your filming, Jianxi, were you able to access some of those closed-off areas?
So one of the places in the documentary Century of Stewardship, we spent 6 months following the daily work of the cultural relics restorers in the Palace Museum in their conservation department. So at first time when I went there, I think it's pretty much like a museum, but the only difference is that there's no glass between human beings and all those cultural relics. So I was so frightened at that time because I'm holding the boom pole, the microphone, and I'm so afraid to damage anything because they are hundreds or even thousands years old. But gradually, when you know the restorers and all the relics, the story behind them, you start to find the right distance between them. I think that's also a beauty of if you stay at a place long enough, you start to find a proper, you are in there and you start to find that you have a right spot with your environment and you start to become a part of it. So that's really charming.
Now, if it had been me, I would have felt really comfortable and really safe because you have the preservationists right there next to you. So if you break something, then they're there to fix it.
Absolutely.
Right? Now, the Masters in the Forbidden Cities series, which you are a part of, has garnered over 1 million views on just YouTube alone and over 3,000 likes per episode. Now, preservation, of course, as we know, comes in different shapes and forms. Now, what are some other ways to preserve this wonder through viral videos, for instance?
I think what we are doing right now is very important as a part of it. Like we are talking about it and sharing about it. Because when we were doing the documentaries, even continuously three documentaries, I found that there are so many things that I don't know, and all those informations are so beautiful and very valuable. So I really want to using the filming and the editing and to tell the stories and details that we learned to the audience. And we are hoping that audience can start to their own conversation. So first you hear about it, then you talk about it, then some of them maybe care about it. I think this is a step-by-step process. So making documentary and both watching documentary is one of the doors that you start that kind of journey.
Well, that's an incredible journey for all of us, I think. Martin, I wanted to mention the fact that, there was a time when all of us thought that preservation was the job of a few technicians inside the Palace Museum. But now we're becoming awakened protectors of our heritage and waking up to this new idea of new means of preservation and to the fact that we're all part of this effort, wherever we are. What are your thoughts on this, Martin?
On preservation?
Yes.
In general? Well, I believe in this idea of living heritage in order to preserve things. So it used to be very normal to, if you have something precious, to put it away in glass and not look at it. But in fact, if people are able to access it and see it and visit it, it becomes a part of the everyday memory of people and also of future generations. So I think the good way in the future to take care of things from the past is to make it part of our contemporary lives. So by being able to visit it, by opening it up and explaining it, it becomes such. You can visit it, you can experience it. So that's what we call it kind of a living heritage. So the heritage is not just something of the past, but it creates a new life for people nowadays. And I just like that idea where if artists are able to be part of that experience, it becomes even more part of our future legacy.
And perhaps it would be great to see more relics coming out of the Forbidden City. Of course, these relics would go on tours to different places around the world, including the Hong Kong Palace Museum and the Taipei Palace Museum.
Sure.
But what about seeing those artifacts inside our daily lives, in our at schools, in public halls, right, city halls, in places that are outside the so-called proper forbidden city proper?
I think that's it's a great suggestion. And I just came back from the Osaka World Expo, and there's the China Pavilion there. And I think that what they did very nicely is they have some relics which are placed there, but of course you want to touch, right? You want to look around, but it's it's difficult to do that with ancient relics. What they did is on the glass, they have a touch screen, and you can touch and you can rotate the object in virtual reality. And in that case, I think it's good to link the physical object, which may be in some museum, to a way that you can experience it better. So you can really turn it around. And I saw especially children were like, whoa, I can look at it from all sides.
Yes.
Because they also only always show one side, right? But you want to see the back, you want to see the next page. So I think that way, as you suggest, bringing these relics to different places, but also making it observable, to make it viewable from different angles for you to engage with it.
With that little mirror on the bottom of the vase, you get to see the imprints and
That's right.
maybe with technology, I'm sure this is going to really change the way we see artifacts and experience artifacts. I know technology, including AI, certainly revolutionized the way we experience life. But what about for the Palace Museum? How are the new ways for us to experience and engage with the Palace Museum? Zijin?
I know that the Palace Museum has created the VR route for us to see on internet. So once you are wearing your personal VR equipment, you're allowed to see those areas that might not be open to the public visit because of preservation reasons. I think that's a very good way to see the whole Palace Museum, because even when you're there in person, because of the distance restriction, you might not be able to see, let's say, the artifacts so close and so clear, but wearing your VR glasses, you can just visit any part of the palace that you want, and you can do that anytime without even being there. So I think that would be a fantastic experience for the visitors.
It's like watching a concert.
Yes.
If you can see it on TV, why would you go to a concert? But that's not the case with the Palace Museum, obviously. No. In fact, in recent years, the Palace Museum has made many innovative attempts, from the online Palace Museum mini mobile program that Zijin just talked about, to the digital exhibitions that you can browse with a swipe, and the immersive panoramic experiences powered by VR and AI. The Palace Museum is more accessible and up close than ever before. Now, Zijin, I think AI could probably build a replica of the Palace Museum better and faster than all of us humans combined. Yeah. But what are some of the areas where humans still outshine those machines and AIs today?
I think digitalization and AI, they can break physical limits, of course, and also democratize access. So it is a really good way to bring the knowledge of the Palace Museum to the whole world. However, it remains tools. It is a very effective way for us to archive, to preserve, and to present the knowledge. But what us human really outshines the AI, the engines, are our unpredictable thoughts and creativity. So for example, the curator's in-depth research into a certain topic, into a certain theme, or the artist's creativity and his or her imagination, and also the physical and sensory attachment to a certain environment, to the architecture. None of them could be simply substituted by virtual forms.
And I wonder, Martijn, as a professor, would you agree or disagree with that? Maybe the randomness that we see in our humans is part of the programming, the programmed randomness.
Well, of course, yes. I do believe in people still, so I agree with that. And there's some quote that says creativity is seeing links where other people don't. And I think that's exactly what people do. AI is extremely good in recognizing patterns and making sense of patterns and helping us to make those patterns visible. But I think it's that human touch, the human ingenuity to go beyond that, to see like, hey, if this is that, I can bring this. This is what you mentioned. You can get inspiration from certain patterns that link with some experience you had before. and that can create innovation and new thoughts. And I think we should not underestimate the power of our own minds to imagine new fantastic things. And AI can help us very much in laying the base for that. So I think it's a tool, and we should work together with that, but don't rely on it.
Well, we'll probably have to rely on AI for the coming years if we're planning to go to Mars. Since we are planning to go to Mars, you know, Elon Musk is doing a lot of these projects, right? But people are saying it's going to take a lot longer. But imagine, say, one day we're moving the Palace Museum complex to a new colony on Mars for humans. One that serves both as a museum and also as a functional space. What construct, what would you keep? To what extent would you keep the original construct? And to what extent would you want to add or create something according to new standards and new living criteria? Martin?
Well, I would certainly consider adding a roof, maybe a glass roof over the courtyard, because, you know, the air is difficult to breathe over there. Yeah, in general, it's difficult to imagine this kind of principle on another planet, because the idea of the Palace Museum is that it's at the center of the universe. So if there's another one on Mars, you know, which one is the center? So
in different parallel realities, right?
That might work.
Yes.
That might work. Yeah. But I do like, of course, if you are in the Palace Museum and if you're in one of these courtyards of traditional Chinese architecture, you have your own piece of sky above, and you cannot see any other buildings. And I think that idea would also work fantastic on Mars. So you have this courtyard, you look up, you think you're the only person in the world that's there in that place at the same time. I think that's something that we could transport, definitely.
Okay. And what about for you, Haijian?
I would like to keep the same form of the building called 四合院. I don't know the English name, but I think 四合院 is a perfect structure to keep the humans in touch. Because nowadays, if you live in an apartment, you don't know actually who lives next to you. But in a traditional 四合院, you get to know each other, or you can be like family in the future. I would really like to keep that form of building if I can go to Mars.
And Haijian, what about for you? I know we've forgotten about you for a while, but I want to bring you back to our discussion. What would you add and what would you create?
Yeah, thank you for bringing me back to the scene. And if I had a chance to move, you know, to build a part of the Forbidden City on the Mars, I would definitely keep the spirit of the Forbidden City. The spirit refers to the central axis. That's the meaning of the center and the order and the balance. As well as the harmony, the spirit of the harmony on the Mars, to the harmony between the humans and nature.
Okay, and you know, we were talking about preservation earlier. Are there new ways that you like to engage with the Palace Museum?
Well, the new ways we should and let everybody, you know, everybody plays a very important role in the preservation of the Forbidden City. First of all, we need to abide by the laws and the regulations applied in the Forbidden City. We're not supposed to touch, we're supposed to litter all the stuff in the Forbidden City. I think that's the basic thing. For the new ways, I'm not quite sure about, you know, just to advocate for most of those visitors should follow the rules and do not do anything damage to the Forbidden City, to the building, and to the relics being displayed over there.
Well, I'd imagine with 3D printing, you know, we can probably make 3D replicas of the Palace Museum relics and be able for us to be people to really feel them, because the tactile senses are such an important part of our perception. Obviously, we're visual animals, but I mean, to be able to feel something with your bare hands, that is a big part of your experience. So I definitely mark that as one add-on to the Palace Museum experience. Now, if you have anything to add to that, please leave a comment below. You're watching our Palace Museum Centennial Special on The Hive. Stay with us. I'll be right back. Welcome back. The wonder of the Palace Museum is that it's not just a collection of artifacts. It's the holder of immense ancient knowledge, some of which we're still trying to understand, from the complex dogon structures to the sophisticated water and fire prevention system to the lost central heating system and the golden tile glazing technique, just to name a few. Now, what are some examples where we're embracing these ancient wisdoms or the spirit of the Palace Museum in our daily lives today? Let's turn to our professor, Martijn.
What are some of the ways we embody the spirit of the Palace Museum in our lives today? Huh? You know, I think this idea, what we just alluded to, the relation between people on the planet and the environment around us, is something that unfortunately has been a bit lost in a lot of modern cities around us. So I think it could really help if we could embody some of that understanding about the relation of people to just simple things like sunshine, the nature systems, the materials, and the wind flow. That was worked very well in traditional Chinese architecture, and the Palace Museum is a good example of that. So I would say that, the idea that we place our structures at a site which is good for ourselves, good for the environment. Yeah.
Okay. Well, I want to sort of take a short pause and bring us back to our viewers who are talking to, reacting to our conversation right now, being very much an active participant of our roundtable right now. One of our viewers says, with regard to the technology of preservation, says nanotechnology is being used right now to help preserve the Palace Museum artifacts. Are you guys aware of that? Nanotechnology, that is a fantastic comment.
Well, I'm aware that some of my colleagues are working at very detailed levels to, for instance, understand the color pigments which are used in the traditional coloring of the palace. And these are often made from kind of complex materials that are not readily available in our daily cultural life now. So that they're looking at maybe the nano level, yeah, at what is the composition of these materials, how can we recreate that to restore the colors in the most exact manner. Yeah, because it was just mentioned that nowadays the palace looks wonderful again after the renovation, but does it look in the way that it was intended to look? Yeah? Because our paints and our colors are actually different from what people used before. Even between Ming and Qing dynasty, there were some differences. So more and more really high-tech techniques are being used to examine these layers of paints, the pigments and the items that were made up like that. So yes, technological advancements go hand in hand with the ability to preserve these artifacts.
I don't know if this is a rumor, but was there pig blood in the paint for the Palace Museum walls?
I'm not expert on that, so I'm not sure.
If anyone knows, please leave a comment below. I'm sure we have a lot of experts who are watching, joining our roundtable discussion. Now, another viewer also says that he or she is a big fan of the Palace Museum, of the masters in the Palace Museum. Just so you know, there are a lot of fans out there watching, that show, which has given us a lot of information about the Palace Museum that we didn't know before. It's certainly a great way to help preserve the Palace Museum. And another viewer says on CGTN app that I'm so amazed by the Forbidden City's stunning architecture. Visiting it in person is definitely on my wish list. It's on the wish list of a lot of people. So definitely come and find Haijian, who is a great tour guide. Now, Zijin, while we like to put a price tag to, or a sticker price to everything in life, but it is really hard to do that with the Forbidden City or the Palace Museum, because what it can offer us is so invaluable. And the value of something changes, of course, from one person to another, and also from one culture to another culture. So how do you address this, and how would you discover the value for something such as the Palace Museum complex in this globalized culture?
I think all of the cultural relics or the objects, when it's presenting in a different cultural context, its core value doesn't change. However, how the audience perceive it and interpret it, it might be quite different. From my personal experience in contemporary art, we once had a show for a Chinese female artist in collaboration with an art institution in New York. So the artist practice is deeply rooted in Chinese traditional philosophy. So for us, even we have never read the philosophical text in full, because the values and the ideas have been internalized through thousands of years of history. So it becomes part of the way we think and the way we live. So it's really easy for us to relate. However, for the international audience, it's definitely not the case. It's not part of their existing knowledge or their cultural framework. However, after a certain background context was given, together with the visual impression from the artist, they could totally understand what the artist was trying to say and what is the actual message it conveys. For example, it's the flow of the energy in human body or the spiritual connection with nature. So by saying that, I mean the Palace Museum has the same value and emotional
capacity.
Yeah, like that. Because I believe like all of the greatest cultural expression and the cultural relics, they all share the same value and emotions that everyone could understand. So I believe the Palace Museum definitely have that ability for the people all around the world to understand and appreciate. Yeah.
It is definitely true. The emotional resonance is universal. And we want to, which is true, I think, with a lot of the great institutions around the world. We've seen the Metropolitan Museum in New York collaborating with artists, independent artists. We've also seen with this year's Osaka Expo, where they're using AI to create these catered tours for visitors. And also we talked about earlier, the Palace Museum offers these cloud experiences through its mini mobile program. So I want to go back to Jianxi, to you. I want to know, what other bold attempts would you like to see with the Palace Museum?
I would say interaction, like Professor Martin just mentioned earlier. This kind of interaction should be like zero distance between you and the cultural relics. But how to do it, I don't know. I just want to try that.
Holding a boom.
That would be so emotionally attractive to me, like if I can really touch something that's thousands years old.
Okay, well, let's just imagine that right now. Imagine the Palace Museum is your backyard, right, Jianxi? What would you do with it? And what would you do in it?
I don't know, do creative things, like writing poems or like painting, I don't know, because I can get a lot of like inspirations from
Where would you paint? On the walls or?
Maybe use some like pig blood. Yeah, I don't know.
Now that is creative and very, very bold indeed. Very bold. Okay, Zijin, for you?
I would really love to have a personalized digital tour from the Palace Museum. Let's say if
it's your own backyard, we'd like to have a personalized tour of your backyard because it's so big.
You have this private tour guide, and as the visitor, you're able to select the certain area that you would love to visit and also the certain artifact that you would love to see, and it will generate a very customized tour route for you, and you will also have a digital guide with you. Imagine that you can just stay at home and also enjoying the beauty of the Palace Museum just on your screen.
And Martin, that seems actually very plausible and very much within reach.
I really look forward to that.
Well, I'm sure with AI, it's definitely it's coming very soon. It's coming very soon. Now, Martin, would you redesign the Palace Museum as an architect?
No. I like the spaces as they are. So I think with this kind of old structures, if they become available for reuse, I would love to keep them intact, but maybe do some different programming, as you were saying. So maybe artist residence, I love that, or a school. I would love maybe some kind of architecture school or architecture program for maybe international audiences that could learn about the traditional ways in which really it was built and constructed, and not just the wood, as we alluded to before, but also the tiling techniques, the foundation, the heating, the relics. So maybe it should be the Palace School rather than only a museum.
Oh, that is beautiful. I love that. I mean, I think the Palace Museum is a place of learning, higher learning, as much as it is a space of exhibition. I mean, what is the purpose of exhibition if it's not meant for people to learn and to become awakened and to become enlightened, right?
Yeah, I would
So
think so.
certainly,
Let's do it.
I'm sure educators are, jotting down notes in their, in the back of their heads, but probably putting on the back burner for a few years later.
That's all right. I have time.
Yeah.
We've all seen stunning photos of the Palace Museum. I'm sure a lot of viewers have seen these beautiful, gorgeous images of the Palace Museum. But I think sound is an important aspect of the Palace Museum experiences as well, right? So what sound would you recommend for our viewers who have not come and seen the Palace Museum? Jianxi.
It's a really beautiful question. In the documentary we just finished, Century of Stewardship, the director, it just come to my mind, the director also graduated from Tsinghua University and also was in the architecture department.
Great.
Yeah, it's a brilliant director. He used a tone called 东方红, the east is red. So actually it's a chime from the close by building called the Beijing Telegraph Building. And every hour you can hear this music or the chime echo across the Forbidden City or the Palace Museum. And for me, it's more like a Big Ben in London or like the bell of Notre Dame in Paris, but absolutely it's a Chinese tone and have its own flavor of its own area. So if you ever get a chance to visit, so set your alarm, every hour you can hear this piece of music that travels time.
This tone sounds so familiar, brings back it's like flashback of childhood memories. But did you guys hear this? Did you guys hear or listen to this tone in the Forbidden City before, in the Palace Museum?
No, never in the Forbidden City. But
It's
maybe,
hourly.
Yes.
Do you have to be at a very strategic spot in the Palace Museum to be able to hear this?
Outdoors.
Outdoors,
Absolutely, yeah,
okay.
absolutely, yeah. So
Which corner, perhaps, of the Palace Museum?
what I hear is right in the Taihe Dian Guangchang, in front of the Harmony.
The Hall of
the Hall of Harmony.
Supreme
yes.
Harmony.
Yes.
Okay. Have you heard of this tone before, though?
I wasn't aware of this tone in the Palace Museum, not at all. No. So I'm gonna go again.
You should try.
I'm gonna try as soon as possible.
Yeah.
I have some friends visiting in 2 weeks, so I'm gonna take them, and I'm gonna wait for it. If I don't hear it, I'm gonna call you to see what am I doing wrong.
He will be playing this tone on his cell phone.
Yeah.
Now you hear it.
You hear it.
Maybe our tour guide has heard it before.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, Haijian, have you heard of this tone before, whether it's inside the Forbidden City or outside?
To be honest, I've never heard of this sound in the Forbidden City. Probably that is not the time I was, too much focused on, giving the stories to my customers. But outside the Palace Museum, yes, I did. A lot. Very familiar to me.
So this is obviously another imperial treatment. Now, growing up, did you ever hear this chime from the Beijing Telegraph Building?
I think I did, but never inside the Palace Museum, so that's a pity. Maybe next time I will visit the Palace Museum on a specific time.
What kind of memories does this bring back?
It feels like a ring bell in the television, in the older television, and it brings you back to your childhood.
And to maybe the Spring Festival Gala, the CCTV
Yes.
Spring Festival Gala.
But the sound is more peaceful, and you can really enjoy yourself inside that sound. Yeah.
Which is the irony of the Palace Museum, I think. It is such a vast space, vast complex, but it's a place where you can be at one with yourself. You're at the same time with so many people, so many tourists, and maybe the emperors, who have lived in this Forbidden City before. But also you're very much in your own space. It's a very Chinese experience. It's inappropriate to say that it's a Chinese, unique to the Chinese experience, but it is an experience that is very, very much, I think, an experience that you can find in China, and certainly at the Palace Museum, where you can be with everyone, but also be with yourself at the same time. Everything, everywhere, all at once. It's like that movie, right? It's like that movie. And I find this Beijing Telegraph building chime to be not only an incredible sonic representation, but also an incredible metaphor for the Palace Museum. But as we've explored through our roundtable today, the value of the Palace Museum lies in that it's more than just a collection of artifacts, but a reservoir of ancient wisdom that has continued to nourish our daily lives and cultures around the world, much like the Telegraph building whose real purpose is to transmit vital messages to all corners of the world. And this is perhaps the gift transmission the Palace Museum is sending out to all of humanity on the occasion of its centennial celebration, that to truly appreciate and preserve a heritage is to preserve not only its form, but also its essence, its beauty and wisdom, and make it part of our daily lives. For we are all keepers and benefactors of this invaluable treasure. We invite you not only to come and witness its magnificence in person, but also to be inspired by it. And that does it for this episode of The Hype. We will see you again next time very soon, but I'd like to thank our viewers and our guests for joining us on this special occasion. I'm Julian Waghann in Beijing. Bye for now.